Today's date is April 12th, 2026. We are having an Israeli-Palestinian Confederation federal government simulation. We are simulating how a federal government for the people of Palestine and Israel will be created through cooperative integration by Palestinians and Israelis together, a government that transcends religion, that will be based on a constitution. You can see our constitution at ipconfederation.org. The constitution is available in Arabic, English, and Hebrew. And if you click on ipconfederation.org, you can read the constitution. Let me find it. There it is. A federal government, traditional democracy with 3 branches of government, a legislative branch with 300 parliament members, an executive branch with president and vice president, 1 Palestinian, 1 Israelis, and a judicial branch with Palestinians and Israelis as equal. When you are on our website, you can read who we are and who supports us. We have strong support from Palestinians and Israelis and people all over the world. This Israeli-Palestinian conflict is a worldwide issue. It's not only in Israel-Palestine, and we are getting worldwide support. You can reach me at josephavasar@gmail.com. Today's guest is Jadd Hashem. Jadd Hashem is the vice president of Atinda International. He was born in Dallas as a Palestinian American. Jadd Hashem has been active in local politics while campaigning for total equality of Palestinians in Israel, Palestine. He believes in the total equality of all people in the Holy Land. Hopefully, we will also have Elijah Kallenberg. I got a text from him a few minutes ago that says that he's under the weather, but he'll try to make it. He is a partner with Jadd. Elijah Kallenberg he was in our simulation before, and at that time, Jadd was not able to make it. This time, it seems like Jadd can make it, but Elijah cannot. But let me read you his bio. Elijah Kallenberg has been at the front of youth-based anti-war and peace activism surrounding Israel and Palestine in his role as the founder and president of Atinda International, the first and only institution uniting Jews, Arabs, Israelis, and Palestinians on college campuses for peace building and conversation to solidify both peoples as one family. His peace-building efforts have been featured in CNN, Al Jazeera, NPR, and various other media platforms. Furthermore, Elijah's opinion and editorial content has been featured in Haaretz, The Forward, Democracy in Exile, Newsday, International Policy Digest, and other outlets. So hopefully he'll be here today as well. Maybe he'll join us during the simulation. On the next session that we have is on April 26th. We will have an IPC strategy meeting. And you will be receiving updates on our efforts to actually implement the election in Israel, Palestine for a federal government. We are working on this now for 2 months with several companies in Europe and in the United States, and hopefully we will have some good news for you on April 26th when we have a strategy meeting regarding the upcoming election. Our subsequent simulation after that is with Rafi and Suleiman. This will take place on May 10, 2026. Suleiman Khatib is the co-founder of Combatants for Peace, and Rafi Gassel is an Israeli-American peace activist. Both of them reside in Jerusalem. Subsequent to that, on May 24, we will have a simulation with Ilan Bass, who is a mediator and a peace builder from London. We are proposing a federal government that would thread the needle. What does it mean? It means that it would pass legislation. It will be able to pass legislation that will be acceptable to both the Palestinian and Israeli people and their governments. This is a simulation. I'm asking you to ask questions, please. So you can ask them verbally, or you can also write them in the chat, and Nasir will administer your comments and translate those to questions, but you can ask, and you're encouraged to ask questions. This is a short video that explains the concept. And by the way, on our website, you can see this video also in Arabic and in Hebrew.
The conflict between Israelis and Palestinians has endured for generations. And instead of time healing the wounds, it's only caused the anger to fester and the violence to grow. But what if there was a way to alleviate the tension? Something that may not outright solve every problem, but at least create a forum that encourages a peaceful compromise. Welcome to the Israeli-Palestinian Confederation, a common third government between the Israeli and Palestinian citizens, specifically designed to foster peace, tolerance, and economic prosperity between the two nations. Here's how it works. First off, both Israel and Palestine will keep their respective governments. Israel's Knesset and the Palestinian National Authority will remain unchanged. The Israeli-Palestinian Confederation, IPC, will be a third entity acting as a unifying agent between the two. The IPC will comprise 300 parliament members elected from 300 districts in Israel, the West Bank, and Gaza. Above them will preside a president and vice president, one Israeli and one Palestinian. In order for the IPC to pass a law, it will require a 55% majority from its Israeli representatives, as well as a 55% majority from its Palestinian representatives, thereby preventing either side from monopolizing the legislature. Of course, the IPC won't undermine the political power of either the Israeli or the Palestinian government. At any time, Israel or Palestine may veto a law passed by the IPC. If neither side vetoes, the law is passed. And the two nations are another step closer to resolution. Please help us make this a reality. The Israeli-Palestinian Confederation. We might speak different languages, but we all mean the same thing.
Like I said, this is also available in Hebrew and Arabic on our website. Let's take a vote and ask you, the audience, whether you support a federal government for the people of Israel and Palestine. Please vote. Ten more seconds to vote.
I need to see the voting sheet on my screen.
Oh, you don't have it, Olivia?
No, not yet.
Okay. How are you voting?
I'm voting. Do I support? Yes, I do.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right. 14 out of published a vote. So we have 13 plus Olivia, 14 out of 14 voting yes, 100%. We don't have any no vote. We'll have another vote at the end of the simulation. I don't know, Olivia, why it's not showing up on your screen.
Well, neither do I. It doesn't matter. We've solved the problem.
Yeah. Confederation and federal systems exist worldwide to address specific conflicts, and their definitions vary and evolve. In the Israeli-Palestinian context, the IPC defines both federation and confederation in the same way as set out in its constitution, a shared democratic government for Israel and Palestine based on the principle outlined in the ipconfederation.org constitution. I just saw that Alan just joined us. Alan, are you here?
Here I am, glad to be aboard. Thanks, Joseph. Keep it going.
So I wanted to tell you that we are starting to work on the 300 districts.
Good.
And we met with a very significant company that actually that's what they do. They create districts, election districts. And they have given us a nonprofit status to buy their program. We don't know how to operate it, but hopefully they will help us create the 300 districts. And this is one of the things that we will be discussing in the next meeting. But I know you've been pushing us to create the 300 districts, and I am anxious to tell you that we are doing it.
Good. Forward ever. On the ground. We got to be on the ground. And you're doing it. Good.
So this is a simulation. It's not a lecture. And we are, in order to conduct the simulation, we need to make certain assumptions. And these are the assumptions. First, that we have available funding to spend for a year-long campaign promoting the election. That includes to create the platform for the election and to create the 300 districts and to let the people, as many people in Israel, Palestine know about the election, really not only in Israel, Palestine, but all over the world. So this is the first assumption. The second assumption is that the election platform gives the entire population in Israel, Palestine, meaning Gaza, the West Bank, and Israel, 15.5 million, with the exclusion of children, the right to vote. In other words, after the year-long campaign, 3 months of election, 15.5 million people are given the right to vote, and you will have to assume that the election has just concluded, because we are assuming that we are the federal government and 5 million people have voted, 3 million Palestinians voted, and 2 million Israelis. This is part of the assumption. You will all have to assume that me, Joseph, was elected president, so that you know I am not qualified constitutionally to be president because I'm not a resident of either Israel or Palestine, and I never intend to run for such, but it makes it easier for me to conduct the simulation under the assumption that I'm the president. A vice president woman was elected by 1.5 million votes, and in 2 years, I will become vice president and she will become president. You'll also have to assume that 300 parliament members were elected. I will ask you, the audience, now to act as parliament members, and you will have to assume that you are representing your district, and your district has approximately 52,000 people. So you have a responsibility towards your district. I have a responsibility towards the entire nation of Israel, Palestine. Before I turn to Jadd, Does anyone have any questions regarding these assumptions? Okay, hearing no questions, let me go to Jadd. Jadd, do you have any questions or comments regarding these assumptions?
I do not. I would just say that I'm glad to be here. Thank you, Joseph, for having me, and it's nice to see some faces here. Nasir, Assalamu alaikum. Jeff, good to see you. And I'm excited. So yeah, I'm just no other comments than that. But just wanted to say I'm glad that we can do this, and I apologize for missing the first time due to an internet outage we had in the area. But glad to be here now.
Yeah. Do you see those assumptions as being realistic if we have the available funding to conduct the year-long campaign and to conduct the election?
Yes, I would say so.
Okay. So you have no questions and no further comments?
No.
Okay. Will you be willing to act as the Prime Minister of Israel in this simulation?
Sure.
Okay. Do we have a volunteer to act as the President of Palestine in this simulation? President of Palestine. As the Prime Minister of Israel and the President of Palestine, you are not allowed to vote. You're not part of our government. You are in a different government, but you have a veto power over legislation. Do I have a volunteer to act as the President of Palestine? Okay, we'll go on until we get someone to volunteer. This is the area that we are talking about: Gaza, West Bank, and Israel. There are 15.5 million people who reside there, and we just elected 300 parliament members to represent this whole area, and I am the president of this entire area. So from this point on, we are assuming that the election has been conducted, and we are pretending to be the parliament and of the federal government in Israel and Palestine. Is Nasir here?
Yes, Joseph, I'm here.
Okay. Do you want to be the president of Palestine?
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay, thank you. All right. So now we are asking.
There's a question in the comment about would some districts be mixed, Palestinians and Israelis? And the answer is yes, they would be, because some areas, for example, Jerusalem, you're going to find that you have a population. However, if you do set up the area into districts, you're going to find that certain populations live in they're concentrated in certain areas, but there's going to be some areas, for example, like Beersheba area, Jerusalem, maybe Haifa, the Galilee, that they're going to be mixed. So there will be cases where some areas will be mixed.
Yeah, I think in a lot of areas there will be mixed. So I'm asking you now to choose whether you are an Israeli parliament member or a Palestinian parliament member, and you will have to represent your district. You'll have to decide what area you represent in this government. So at this time, and you'll have to decide whether your district is mixed. And you'll have to remain intellectually honest throughout the simulation, because you will be asked to vote, and you may be asked to disclose your vote and to disclose what area you represent, so that you know, in the federal government, everything is transparent. So if you vote the way you vote. You may be asked, why did you vote and who you are? And since we are transparent, you'll have to tell us the reasons why you vote the way you did. All right, publish the vote. We have 11 Palestinian parliament members and 4 Israeli parliament members. Please remain so throughout the simulation. So now that we have a president, we have a parliament, we finished the election. This is a momentous occasion in the history of Israel-Palestine. We never had, throughout history, in human history, ever a democratic government elected in the area that includes Israel-Palestine. Whatever you want to call that area, the geography is the same. We have just concluded an election based on democratic principles that transcend religion, in cooperation between Palestinians and Israelis, what we call cooperative integration. About 20 to 30% of the Palestinian population and 20 to 30% of the Israeli population created cooperative integration to have a federal government together. This is a huge event in the history of humankind. Never been done before. A democracy based on equality that separates between government and religion, a secular democracy that Palestinians and Israelis have agreed upon in an election and gave legitimacy to the parliament members in their districts and to the president and vice president. So congratulations on this momentous occasion. And as parliament members and president, we are going to use that capital for the benefit of the people of Palestine and Israel. So our first order of business is to ratify the Constitution. Libby, would you be so kind as to read the Constitution? And then we will take a vote and go to our guest, Jadd, to ask him his opinion on the Constitution. Libby?
Palestinians and Israelis are entitled to equal rights under the law and guaranteed human rights and freedom. The Israeli-Palestinian Confederation does not intend to supersede or supplant the Palestinian or Israeli governments, nor to abrogate or undermine any agreements between those governments. We recognize the need to work with the Israeli and Palestinian governments. Our purpose is to resolve conflicts and to expand the relationship between Palestinians and Israelis in a fair and equitable manner. We believe in equal rights under the law, guaranteed human rights, and freedom for all. We voluntarily give the legislatures and the governments of Israel and Palestine veto power over legislation we pass relating to the domain of control of those governments. We believe in the separation of power between the legislative, executive, and judicial branches. We believe in the creation of a permanent secular government for all the people residing in Israel and Palestine. We believe in having a separate judicial branch relating to IPC legislation with Israeli and Palestinian judges, with a system to avoid biased decisions based on nationality.
So the bottom line is that we, even though we are the federal government of the entire area, we do not intend to undermine the Israeli or the Palestinian government or to undermine any agreements between them. So they can agree to a two-state or any other agreements. Constitutionally, we are prohibited from undermining agreements between those two governments. We give those two governments a veto power over legislation that violates their sovereignty. The next legislation will be specific about what violates their sovereignty.
Just
So,
1 second. I have a problem with the veto. I find that today in the UN, the veto power of US and Russia and don't bring any votes further because they immediately have the veto vote. So I have a bit of a problem with that.
okay. Do you have any questions? Okay.
What? Okay.
So
So-
maybe Miriam's question is, why is there a veto? And do you think that the veto will act as an obstacle to promote and to actually implement progressive change? Miriam, could you?
Yes, I do.
Okay, that could be your question.
Okay, so let me go to her question and answer her question before we talk about the Constitution, before we vote on the Constitution. Why is veto necessary? A veto provides a safety net to both sides because we want both sides to support us. By both sides, I mean the people, the population, and the governments. So many in the Israeli and the Palestinian population support their government. They feel safe with their government. So if they are given a veto power, if their government are given a veto power, then they are more likely to support the federal government. And therefore, it increases the likelihood of Israeli and Palestinian participation in the election. And it also decreases Israeli and Palestinian government's opposition to the federal government and removes any claims by those governments that the federal government that is being proposed is trying to undermine or is a subversive intention, because it gives them a veto power. And it gives protection, legal protection, to the candidates and those who announce their candidacy, because if we don't have a veto power, those governments could claim that they are joining a subversive government that tries to undermine the existing Israeli or Palestinian government. And it compels the federal government to thread the needle, meaning to find the least objectionable legislation to both sides, and it creates a platform for negotiations. So this is the reason for a veto power. Basically, if there is no veto power, then the federal government will have to be supreme to the Israeli and the Palestinian governments, and those governments will never agree to that, and they may see the federal the attempt to create a federal government as an attempt to subvert their governments. So, Miriam, did you understand that?
I did, but I come also from Canada, where we have the federal government and the provincial governments. And we discuss, for me, what I see in the security community of the UN, US as pro-Israel vote veto all the time and doesn't accept, it doesn't bring at all any
Objective.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Well,
So,
the
so
UN.
from history, I see that it is too powerful to give a veto. Okay, that is one thing. The second one is you give
But
the
Miriam, I'm asking you, did you understand our reasoning?
yeah,
Why
I
we?
didn't.
Okay,
Yeah.
so what part of the reasoning do you do not accept? We gave you reasoning why we're giving a veto power. What part
Okay.
of the reasoning that is in front of you do you think is unacceptable to you, and why?
For me, it is. I know, like in Israel, at election time, maybe sometimes there is 30% of the population, or even less, that vote for the government, for the coalition. Is that the majority of the citizen of Israel? No, it's not at all. In my opinion,
Well, I'm sorry, we have to speak about specific here. Uh, it- it- and that is let's go back to the Constitution. I explained to
okay,
you why we're giving a veto power. Let's
okay.
have
I
a,
have a question.
yeah, go ahead, Shlomo. You have a
Yeah,
question about the Constitution?
yeah, about the veto. What if the government of Israel just veto the whole thing? Veto IPC, said we are actually totally sees this as an enemy of Israel. We absolutely disagree to this IPC. Then what?
Then they lose legitimacy.
Okay, but
They lose legitimacy within their own people. And it would be difficult for them to ignore their own people, and they will lose legitimacy worldwide, and they will lose their argument that that Palestinians do not want peace.
But also,
They will
Joseph,
undermine their own government.
the veto is given only to legislation that is, how should I
Yeah,
say that has what's the word that you use that has to deal with them. So they
yeah. When the veto has to do with uh, when they are indispensable.
indispensable, exactly. So
Oh,
technically, that would
yeah.
mean that both Israel and the Palestinian Authority could not veto the IPC in general, only legislation that where they are indispensable.
Yeah. Okay, but we'll get to that. Let's go to
Yeah, I was going to say that I think
let's go
maybe,
to the Constitution.
yeah, through legislation and through the simulation, then we can see this in place and how it works and why it's a good or bad idea.
All right. Um, any questions regarding the Constitution before we go to Jadd? Questions? Okay, Jadd. So let's take a vote. You're a parliament member. You have to ratify the Constitution. Otherwise, you will be replaced. So Palestinian parliament members, please ratify the Constitution. Okay, publish the vote. 100% of the Palestinian parliament members ratify the Constitution. Let's go to the Israeli parliament members. Please ratify the Constitution. Israeli parliament members, please ratify the Constitution. Publish the vote. 100% of the Israeli parliament members. So this Constitution has passed. Let's go to Jadd and ask you to express your comments regarding what you have just seen, the federal government ratifying the Constitution.
Yeah, I believe it looks good. And I think that when it comes, for example, I know people were raising the idea of the veto. As far as I'm aware, I think vetoes can be overturned with 65% of the vote of Israelis and Palestinians. Is that correct in the Confederation?
No, it's
Oh,
incorrect.
that's not.
No, no. The federal government does not have a power over the Israeli or the Palestinian government. It cannot undo a veto.
So if there's a veto put in place, then there's no way to overturn that.
Correct. There is a way to change the legislation and to discuss and to embarrass and to persuade, but the Israeli and the Palestinian governments ultimately have a veto.
Okay, I see.
Only when they are indispensable. Okay.
Correct. Only if they are indispensable. And we'll get into that later. What is indispensable?
Okay. Then yeah, I understand then. As far as the Constitution looks, though, it looks good to me.
Okay. Miriam, are you an Israeli or Palestinian parliament members in this simulation?
I am Israeli representing the Galilee district.
Okay. So how did you vote on the Constitution? Did you ratify it?
Yes, I did.
Okay, good. All right. So now let's go to our first legislation, and that is granting a veto power. Libby, would you be so kind to read this legislation?
The Confederation is the government of the entire population of Israel and Palestine from the river to the sea. We recognize the Palestinian and Israeli governments and are seeking their cooperation to implement our vision for peace by giving them a veto. We will do our utmost to satisfy the essential needs of each government. We are pleading with the Palestinian and Israeli public to understand that while we would like to pass the best legislation possible to improve their lives, under these constraints, a perfect legislation is not possible. We hereby bestow a veto power relating to legislation affecting sovereignty to the following: the government of Israel on issues in which it is indispensable, the Palestinian government on issues in which it is indispensable. In the event of changes in the entirety of the Israeli or Palestinian governments, this legislation may be amended or repealed, subject to the IPC Constitution. The Parliament will decide on indispensability. Vetoes may be bestowed individually or collectively.
So when we pass legislation, each legislation that the Parliament will decide, is the Israeli government indispensable or is the Palestinian government indispensable? And we will decide whether to give them a veto power. So a government is indispensable if its cooperation is necessary to implement the legislation. For example, if we want to pass legislation on specific land or to create a police force or removal of the wall, then the governments are probably indispensable and they will be given a veto power. However, if we have our own budget or we want to distribute our funds that we were able to collect from all over the world, or appointing our ministers or allocating our own funds, then they are dispensable. We can do it without their consent. I already went through the explanation why we're giving a veto power. Before I go to Jadd, does anyone have any questions regarding the veto power?
And just a comment, this is redundant. If we have it in the Constitution, why do we need legislation now?
Because the Constitution speaks in generalities about veto power, but here we are passing statute that explains under what circumstances we are giving a veto power to the existing governments, and it may be the Israeli or the Palestinian governments.
Okay.
Any other questions regarding the veto power? And by the way, Shlomo, the actual Constitution does explain the details that are in this legislation. So if you read the actual Constitution, the issue of indispensable and is in the actual Constitution.
Great. So even more so. But anyway, you want a legislation?
Well,
Okay.
it's important for the simulation to explain. That's why we
Okay.
broke it down into legislation. But the actual constitution that you can read on our website does speak about under what circumstances they have a veto power. And this is one of the benefits of having the simulation, because we were able to expand and amend the Constitution based on those simulations, that the issues have come up. And really, this Constitution that you see on our website, that you will see on our website, is a product of, we have over 150 simulations, and it helped perfect the Constitution. All right, going back to the, does anyone have any questions regarding this legislation? Okay, let's vote. Palestinian parliament members, please vote. Do you support this legislation for a veto power? Palestinian parliament members? 5 more seconds to vote. We need 55% of the Palestinian parliament members to vote on this legislation. In order for it to pass, publish the vote. We have 100% of the Palestinian parliament members agreeing with this legislation. Let's go to the Israeli parliament members. Israeli parliament members only, please vote. Publish the vote. 60% of the Israeli parliament members, we need 55%, so this legislation has passed. Jadd, what are your comments regarding this legislation?
I think the legislation is good. I would just need to do some further reading on the Constitution as a whole, the long Constitution with the individual detail there, to make sure I have a better understanding of what is considered indispensable. But I would put a yes to this.
All right, thank you. Yeah, you could read it. It's on our website. We are updating that on a regular basis, and you can read it on. By the way, we are contacting international organizations such as the Carter Center and other organizations to have them analyze the Constitution and hopefully endorse it as well. I'm not. They already told me that they are not in the business of endorsing a Constitution, but I know that they have looked at it. All right, let's go to our first legislation, and that has to do with the current events. Make peace with Iran, Lebanon, Yemen, and Syria. Libby, would you be so kind as to read this legislation?
We, the elected members of Parliament of the Confederation Government of Israel, Palestine, affirm our responsibility to serve the people of this land with integrity, accountability, and an unwavering commitment to peace. For more than a century, the peoples of Israel, Palestine, and the broader Middle East have endured recurring cycles of war, violence, and instability. From Iran to Lebanon, Syria, Yemen, and beyond, generations have suffered from the failure of governments and political actors to secure lasting peace. We believe that a new path is necessary. Accordingly, we are taking the initiative to safeguard all people living in Israel, Palestine, and to advance a vision of regional stability that can extend across the Middle East. Peace for our peoples cannot remain an aspiration. It must become a deliberate and organized effort. To this end, we will establish official parliamentary delegations to engage directly with the authorities of Israel, Palestine, Lebanon, Syria, Yemen, and Iran. The purpose of these delegations is to open channels of dialogue, promote mutual de-escalation, and work toward binding commitments to cease violence and threats among all parties. Our role will be to advocate firmly for an immediate cessation of hostilities and incitement, mutual recognition of the right of all peoples in the region to live in security and dignity, structured negotiations aimed at achieving durable and verifiable peace. We will serve as an impartial facilitator and promoter of peace, guided by fairness, objectivity, and the protection of our people. Where governments or entities endanger regional stability or threaten civilian life, we will speak clearly and responsibly. Our commitment is to peace, security, and a future in which the peoples of this region can finally live without fear. And this is pursuant to Article 2, Section 21 of the IPC Constitution, and neither the Israeli nor the Palestinian government holds veto authority over this act.
Libby, I just want to tell you, I just love how you read this. I get very emotional when you read it. So we are the people of Palestine and Israel together. And we want to establish a parliamentary delegation to explore the possibility of peace. We need to know what is really going on. We don't want to be receiving information from social media or from YouTube or by each side accusing each other. We want to get to the bottom of this and find out what needs to be done, who is the good guy, who is the bad guy, and have an honest discussion with all the governments in the area. We are a legitimate government in Israel and Palestine. We don't need to give a veto power to the Israeli or the Palestinian government because they are dispensable. We can do it on our own. So this is an example of a legislation that the Israeli and the Palestinian governments are dispensable and are not given a veto power. Does anyone have any questions regarding this legislation before I go to Jeff?
Yes. First of all, I don't understand why you chose only Iran, Lebanon, Yemen, and Syria. Saudi Arabia is a border with Israel. Turkey is...
I'm sorry, Saudi Arabia does not have a border with Israel. That's not true.
And there is no violence. This is what I chose as the president. I'm not choosing that. There is a current violence between these entities. Okay. All right. Any other questions? All right. Hearing no questions, let's have a vote. Palestinian parliament members, please vote on this legislation. Do you support this legislation? We need 55% of the Palestinian parliament members. Remember, we are the government of Israel and Palestine. We are not a Palestinian government or an Israeli government. Publish the vote. 100% of the Palestinian parliament members voted yes. Let's go to the Israeli parliament members. Please vote on this legislation. Israeli parliament members, we need 55% of the Israeli parliament members. Publish the votes. All of the Israeli parliament members have voted on this legislation. Let's go to Jadd and ask for his comments.
Well, me personally, I would be a yes if I were taking my own personal stances into this. If I'm acting as the Prime Minister of Israel, typically in this current political climate, I guess my
Well, I'm sorry,
concern.
you don't have a veto power. You're now
Oh, okay.
you're not acting as a observer only. You haven't been given a veto power.
Okay, understood.
Mhm.
In this case, I would mostly say yes. I see little to no issue with that.
Okay. So this is an example where we can do it on our own.
Hmm.
We don't need the Israeli or the Palestinian governments to approve us. Uh, we are the only legitimate government in Israel, Palestine, and we want to protect our own people. All right,
Hmm.
let's go to the next legislation, and that is the future of Gaza. Here, Jadd, you get a veto power as the Prime Minister of Israel. Future of Gaza. Libby, would you be so kind as to read this legislation?
All right. The Gaza region, with a population of 2.3 million people, elected 44 members to parliament. And legislation one, the destinies of the Israeli and Palestinian peoples are inseparably linked. The Israeli-Palestinian Confederation provides a democratic vision for stability, prosperity, and peace. 2, the IPC declares an immediate and unconditional ceasefire. We are demanding the Israeli and Palestinian governments to abide by the ceasefire agreements. In addition, prior to the construction campaign, the Israeli troops will withdraw from Gaza. And 3, the IPC shall launch a national reconstruction campaign to rebuild homes, roads, hospitals, civic institutions, and critical infrastructure, enabling the prompt return of displaced residents of Gaza to their communities. And 4, the IPC proclaims the restoration of law, order, and civil society as a national priority, recognizing that peace is impossible without justice and social stability. 5, the IPC shall retain authority over the Gaza Strip until a new, freely and fairly elected Palestinian government assumes power in Gaza in accordance with democratic principles. The Palestinian Authority and Hamas.
Someone has a background noise, if you can mute.
Yeah, I think they muted. The Palestinian Authority and Hamas shall agree to hold an election within a year for the creation of a Palestinian government. And 6, all legislative, executive, and judicial decisions related to Gaza shall be enacted by the IPC government pursuant to the IPC Constitution, in cooperation with the government of the United States, all Arab states in the region, and the government of Israel and Palestine. And 7, the IPC calls upon the international community, including the governments of Israel and Palestine, to provide a $50 billion grant to fund this urgent reconstruction and reconciliation effort. And this is pursuant to Article 2, Section 21 of the IPC Constitution. The Israeli and the Palestinian governments are granted veto power over this act.
So this legislation basically asking for the entire world community to give the federal government $50 billion in order to reconstruct Gaza. So the question then becomes, will the Israeli and the Palestinian leaders of a separate government veto this legislation?
Joseph, can I ask, the title of the legislation says future governance of Gaza, and you're giving the Israeli leader a veto power. And I think that I think you should change the title, because what you're saying here is that Israel is determining over the future governance of Gaza, and meaning that the government, and I think that It takes sovereignty away from and the self-determination of Palestinians to
I'm sorry,
determine their own.
you're reading too much into it.
Well, I mean, yeah, I'm just saying, as I would say that, you know, I mean, would you ever say that that Palestinians can veto or have say in who Israelis elect? Because I think that would raise
No,
problems.
it doesn't give the Israeli government a
Well, I mean, you're giving them a
Oh.
veto power over the future governance of Gaza, and that's not.
No. We are giving them a veto power over this specific legislation.
That's why I say you should change the title. That's what I read when I see future governance of Gaza.
It's future governance of Gaza, not the future of Gaza. All right. Any questions regarding this legislation?
I didn't see any word about the siege.
About the siege?
I believe, yeah.
How to stop the genocide? It's something very simple. First, yeah.
Well,
I think we should present it the way it is, because I already know what's going to happen when you get to Netanyahu.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Do you have questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
Where did the $50 billion figure come from? Is there actually some estimate of what reconstruction would cost, or is it a figure out of the air?
Yeah, actually, the Egyptians have conducted an estimate, and they came up with a $50 billion estimate. The funding will be coming from governments all over the world. This is our opportunity to use the fact that we passed that we created a government, that we passed a secular legislation, a secular constitution, that we have cooperative integration of Palestinians and Israelis. This is what I discussed earlier in the momentous occasion, that the fact that we have created a federal government together gives us huge political capital, and we can spend that capital all over the world in order to get them to contribute. And we can go to government by government all over the world and ask for their contributions. We can go to companies by companies. Some of them are multi-billion companies, and ask for their contributions. And if they refuse, we have the power of calling them out on their refusal. I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Yeah, my wife Odile hearing this said, "You're thinking of money for Gaza, you should have the Israeli government rebuild it, pay for it." Anyhow, I'm glad to see.
We are a federal government. We are the only legitimate government in Israel and Palestine. All right.
I'm glad to hear that the estimate is based in some actual calculation of the need. That's
all right. Let's have the
Palestinian. You're right. He's right. Alan, you're right. Israel should pay for it.
Let's have the Palestinian parliament members vote. Palestinian parliament members, please vote. We need 55% of the Palestinian parliament members to support this legislation. We need 55%. Publish the vote. We have 11 out of 11 parliament members voted yes. 100% of those who voted, but it's enough to pass this part of the Constitution. Let's go to Israel parliament members. Please vote. Israeli parliament members. Okay, publish the vote. 100% of the Israeli parliament members have voted in favor of this legislation. Let's go to the Prime Minister of Israel. No, I'm sorry. Let's go to the Palestinian president first. Mr. President, are you going to veto this legislation?
No, I'm not going to veto it. I'll accept it.
Okay. Mr. Prime Minister of Israel, are you going to veto this legislation?
Of course.
Yes, I am.
Do you want us to make any changes to this legislation?
I would need a few guarantees. First and foremost, when it comes to the $50 billion that would be allocated, I would need to know, first of all, where the funding is coming from, and I do not want the United Nations to be a big part of that chunk. I believe the United Nations should not be a large part of that, and that the United States needs to be leading the way when it comes to the $50 billion that are being allocated if they're going to be a part of this. I guess that's on the next slide as well. But also when it comes to the elections, I would need for there to be, like, Hamas cannot be a part of the election process, for example, even though it's a democratic process, they cannot be a part of the election process as well. And furthermore, when it comes to the return of displaced residents of Gaza to their communities, I don't know if I can guarantee that either, because I don't know who's coming back into Gaza and where they're coming from. So those are my three issues.
Okay. Let's talk about the election. The IPC shall retain authority over the Gaza Strip until a new freely and fairly elected Palestinian government assumes power in Gaza in accordance with democratic principles. Do you have any objection to that, Mr. Prime Minister?
Who's overseeing the elections? It's the IPC.
This is not part of the legislation, but would you?
Because I would like the United States to oversee these elections.
Okay.
I would need that guarantee as an Israeli prime minister.
Okay. Would it be acceptable to you if the Carter Center monitored the election?
Well, Jimmy Carter wrote a book about apartheid, so I don't think so.
Well, Jimmy Carter is not alive. The Carter Center.
I understand, but the center's named after him. And if that's his legacy, then I don't believe that that's an adequate answer.
Okay. Would it be acceptable if the State Department, the U.S. State Department, monitored the election?
Yes.
Okay. What are your other issues?
The $50 billion grant, I would need to know where that money is. I would need to see almost like a sheet of how that money is getting appropriated from which countries, from which organizations, because I don't trust the United Nations to be a large part of that.
Well, what do you care? I mean, the funding is going to be funneled through the World Bank.
Okay, but I would still like to see where the money specifically, who is pitching into to what degree, because $50 billion, I mean, that's a large amount of money we're talking about that's going to the rebuilding of Gaza, or that's going to the governance. I would like clarification.
Are there any specific countries or entities that you think have money that we should not be accepting? Is that what you're saying?
That's correct.
So if we receive $1 billion from Spain, you think we should reject it?
No, Spain, we can take their money. Yeah, Spain is fine. But I don't know if I would trust, for example, I mean, certain countries that that the Israelis would have adverse relationships with,
Like
because sorry?
Like what countries you?
Well, I think a country like, I mean, if it's coming from any country associated with Iran, for example, any country in that region, or any country, not in that region, I should say, but if it's coming even from the Saudis, I don't know how much I would trust it. Turkey, I'm not sure. I would say perhaps.
Mr. Prime Minister, you don't have to trust Money,
Well, I
money
mean,
is
if
money. It doesn't matter.
money is money, but whose pockets is it going into directly is what I'm asking.
It's going to go to the World Bank, and it's going to be utilized by us to rebuild Gaza.
Okay. In that case, as long as it's filtered through the World Bank, then I largely wouldn't have an issue.
All right.
But I would
Okay,
like to
thank
see
you.
receipts on exactly who's contributing.
We will work in cooperation with you.
Okay.
We know that you have yourself funneled money to Gaza from Qatar. So, but regardless, we are going to use the money to rebuild. Libby, do you have a question?
I think the question might be just, are there strings attached to any of the donations to make this happen?
No, no strings attached. We are the federal government. We do not accept any conditions. We are the government of the people of Palestine and Israel. We have 41 parliament members from 44 parliament members from Gaza, and they are the legitimate representative of in the federal government from Gaza, and we are not going to accept any conditions, except possibly regarding militarization of Gaza. All right, I think we exhausted the issue.
That's good.
Let's have a post-simulation survey. After participating in the simulation, do you support the federal government for the people of Palestine and Israel?
Is the prime minister allowed to? Am I allowed to vote in this?
Everyone. We are not in the simulation anymore.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
We're going to go to open discussion soon.
Okay.
Okay, 10 more seconds to vote. Okay, you share the results. Okay, 100%, just like we had at the beginning. Before we go to open discussions, I would like to close by saying that a common democratic confederation government can bring peace. Peace is the only vision. There is no other vision for Israel-Palestine. Online elections are feasible, and I know that even more so by talking to these online companies that are conducting hundreds and hundreds of online elections. I was actually astonished to see how many elections they have conducted. It's not going to be expensive to conduct the elections, and we anticipate cooperative integration from Palestinians and Israelis, just like we said in the assumptions, or that cooperative integration is realistic in Israel-Palestine. So with that in mind, let me stop sharing, and I'll give the floor to Jadd and to Nasir to conduct the discussion.
Thank you, Joseph, and thank you, Jadd, for being here. Jadd, it's always good to see you, brother. Jadd's a good friend of mine, and I was glad to invite him, and too bad Elijah couldn't join. These are two superheroes, seriously. So this is the part where it's a general discussion. We don't have to necessarily talk about the legislations that we passed, but also we can ask Jadd some questions, and as well as bring about maybe some concerns and questions you had in regards, and Joseph will also can answer some questions as well as others. So you can start by raising your hand. Jadd can also talk about his organization Atidna and what they're doing. And so maybe let's before we take any questions, Jadd, if you want to plug in something for Atidna and what you do and who exactly you are and why you're here.
I'll be very brief on that because I want to hear some questions. Once again, thanks everybody for doing this, and Joseph, thank you obviously a ton for hosting me here, and to Nasir as well, of course, for being a part of this. I think the Confederation is a really great thing, and I think that it aligns really with what Atidna is trying to do. And so I'll be very brief and sort of kind of talking about what I do, but I'm the vice president of the organization Atidna International, which was founded by Elijah, who unfortunately couldn't be here. He's the president of the group. He's Jewish American. I'm Palestinian American. And we've joined forces for the last 3 years or so, dating back prior to October 7th, with the goal basically of bringing together Palestinians, Israelis, Jews, Arabs across college campuses and also across different parts of the United States, with a shared goal of bringing the two peoples together for a shared future, one that is just, one that is equal, one that is fair, that is free from any sort of occupation or violence, one that gives a legitimate future to the Palestinians and Israelis in the Holy Land. We always say that we're brothers, not others, and that a shared future between the two peoples is the only way. And we conduct ourselves through both dialogue sessions where we have conversations kind of like these, as well as peace events where we bring together typically guest speakers who have lived experience in the Holy Land, talking about their experience and why they've chosen the path of building bridges. I'm somebody personally who is very supportive of a confederation type model as what I believe to be the solution to this conflict. And I'm really glad to be here. So I'm happy to stick around and be a part of a further discussion.
Thank you, Jadd. Go ahead, Shlomo.
Just like to, that's exactly was my question, but like to maybe more detail, how many people and how many people from Israel itself compared to the United States and other places, and what is the trend? Is it growing or shrinking?
Yeah, so our organization, it was founded at the University of Texas, where Elijah and I both graduated from. And we started at that college campus, and now we've expanded to about 15 campuses across the United States, including Harvard, University of Pennsylvania, Arizona State, Northwestern, many different schools. And typically for dialogues and for peace events, the audience is very much split, about 50% Jewish Israeli, 50% Palestinian Arab. And so the actual coalition is very much split. And we have now thousands of university students across the country who are a part of it. And we've now expanded also to a chapter in Ontario, Canada, as well as one in the Netherlands. And we do some work on the ground in Israel, Palestine with the organization Roots that I'm sure many of you are aware of. We're like in a kind of an affiliate chapter with them. And Elijah and I are part of the board there, kind of overseeing some of the duties there. And so typically it is an American audience as of right now because we're based in the United States, but it is about 50% Jewish/Israeli and then 50% Palestinian Arab. It's majority Palestinian. There are some other Arabs who come in, Jordanians, Egyptians, whatnot, who participate, but that's kind of the makeup there. But it's very much American based right now because that's where we've started. But we'd love to expand internationally and, of course, doing more work in the Holy Land as well with any schools that wanted to participate.
Are you in contact with other organizations like yours, like Combatants for Peace and so many other, Jewish Voice for Peace?
Yeah, those organizations, the Parent Circle is a good friend of ours as well. Standing Together, we've gotten to do a little bit of work with them as well. And actually now, for one of the peace events that we did, we brought in Maoz Inon and Aziz Abu Sada, who of course many people know as prominent peace activists. We brought them to the University of Texas campus, and they're going to be coming back to Texas next month, where I'm going to get to have another kind of discussion with them, which is going to be really great. And so all these organizations, like you said, Combatants for Peace is another great one. All of these groups, some of them are local, like Austin for Palestine Coalition, but Jewish Voice for Peace, these groups as well, and other groups that do similar work. So yeah.
They've both been guests here, by the way.
Yeah.
As well. Yeah. So, real quick question: do you think that the pre and post October 7th, in terms of relationships with your type of organization, do you think that okay, let's look at like right before and right at the events, like the first few months, and then now? It's because I feel that a lot of organizations that I work with were where, you know, everything was good before. And then when
Yeah.
October 7th happened, it shattered a lot of people, and a lot of
Right.
people flew in different directions. But now I'm starting to see that people are a little bit starting to settle down, but still not a lot of people are settling down. I feel a lot of people are still like kind of bitter and angry and feel like it's hopeless. Did you guys experience that?
Well, I will say, you know, because some people will ask us like, oh, was it hard after October 7th, right? And it's like Beleshik, like without it, of course, like without a doubt, it was hard because before October 7th, people really weren't in the United States. A lot of people just weren't concerned about Israel Palestine that much, and we had kind of a small coalition that had been built. And after October 7th, people like myself, I mean, it was very normal for all of us to be very angry with what we were seeing unfolding, whether you're Israeli or whether you're Palestinian, and seeing what you see unfolding in the news and just massacres occurring in Gaza, for example. It's hard for any of us to look at that and feel calm and be stable. And so when October 7th happened, there was a bit of a drop off in participation from both Israelis and Palestinians. But it was a few months, maybe you have October 7th happen, and then late November, early December is when we actually got some local media in the Austin area to kind of pick up our story because we did a joint vigil on November 7th, 2023. And that got some coverage. And from there, that's when people in the Austin area found us. And what that makes me believe is that it's not necessarily that people wanted to do the work less after October 7th, but that some of the people would leave, and then others who wanted to be a part of the work didn't know where that was. Heather, thank you very much. I see that you saw that vigil. And a lot of people wanted to do this work, but didn't know what to do it, where to do it, because there weren't that many avenues, at least like based on college campuses, right? Besides your local advocacy groups. And when we started getting more national coverage from outlets like CNN or ABC, that's when people began to see us. And that's how we began to grow our chapters, because people would see our news stories, essentially, see the media that we're doing, and would participate or would literally email us and ask, hey, I'm at the University of Tennessee. I want to start a chapter with my Jewish friend. How can we do this? And we'd set up a Zoom meeting that way, get to know them, and they would set up their own chapters, right? And so the coverage, honestly, the media coverage for us is what really blossomed us to get more participation. But after October 7th, it was very tough for the first month or so. And people were very angry. There were things after October 7th that I said that I wish I could take back because of the anger that I had. And I think a lot of people feel that way on one side or the other. But through my own growth, for example, I was able to feel that this work was more accommodative to what I actually wanted to do. And I think a lot of people felt that way. And so now it's April of 2026, and Atina is still growing. And people still do care about Israel Palestine. It doesn't dominate the American media headlines that much anymore necessarily. It's very focused on Iran specifically, but people very much on college campuses still care. And I think that this work now is becoming more and more acceptable to people on sort of both sides of that spectrum. But it's a test for sure. And we've had very difficult conversations. It's always been easier. Well, it's always been easier for me with Arabs and Palestinians than to reach the Israelis. For me, for Elijah, it can differ. But
wait, you said it's easier for you to reach. Say that again. Is it you said Palestinians or Israelis?
As I'd say, after April, by mid 2024, it began easier to get Palestinians and Arabs personally, me. But there was a while where it was more Jewish Israeli. And I think now, because of Iran, for example, I think the Jewish Israeli participation is low, not lower, but it's now, as Atidna stands, it's like probably 55% Arab Palestinian,
okay,
45% Jewish Israeli. But it used to be a little bit the other way. But also it helps that I'm somebody who I come from a certain background and I reach people my own way, whereas I have a lot of people, it becomes difficult, because what I find to be is that a lot of Palestinians will be apprehensive at first, as I'm sure you and I will both.
Yeah, we know that.
Of course, right? But if I talk to them for 5 minutes, I can really get them to understand it, right? I've also had conversations with Israelis to where it takes like 45 minutes before like there's kind of a seed that's planted in certain ways. And so but I think you and I, and I'll see it, we both understand the difficulties and the logistics of it, and language is very important.
Yeah.
And I'm very careful with language.
I think from the Palestinian standpoint, there's two things. There's one, they're suspicious.
Yeah,
They're a suspicion.
of course,
And
of
they're
course.
suspicion because whenever you have an organization that talks about joint cooperation, there's suspicion. It says a lot of suspicion is because does this organization promote some sort of normalization, basically acceptance of Zionism or an
Yeah,
Israeli sovereignty and et cetera like that.
right.
And then there's the other issue is are the people, the Palestinians who participate in this, are they genuine? Do they really care about Palestine? Or are they motivated by maybe some special status or financial reward or
Yeah,
things like that? And this is something that we face
right,
a lot of. On the other
right.
hand, the reconciliation difficulty that I've had because I have boots on the ground both in Palestine and in the US
Tough.
is that the bridge between the two is become more difficult because
Yeah,
it's like that for Israelis because the Israelis that you meet in Israel and the Israeli Jewish and the Israelis that you meet abroad are like night and day. It's like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Israelis are, the population in Israel has gone like crazy, like nuts. The majority of them, I'm sorry to say this,
You're right.
they've gone genocidal. And meanwhile, in the United States, you do have that element here, but when I meet people, Israelis in the United States, I feel like we can do a lot more here in the United States because both are it's interesting because in the Palestinian population in the United States, I feel is more radical than the population in Palestine.
yeah,
In Palestine,
that's
people
true.
just want to live. They just want to live. I mean, I had a
Tough,
friend of mine who just said, I don't care if it's Israel or Palestine. I just want to live my life and be free
tough.
and call it whatever you want. Call it cupcake land. And then in the United States, you have like, no, it has to be Palestine from the river to the sea. There's no such thing as Israel. And
Right. No, no, I agree with you there. And I think, and obviously you and I both, and you even more than me, because you have much more boots on the ground than I do, for example, in Palestine. I mean, my
yeah,
family's there, yes, but I'm not as actively involved in the land. And so I see that same challenge that you do. And I mean, for those who know Elijah, by the way, my good friend, I mean, he is, I mean, you should see, he's Jewish, obviously. I mean, he's been excommunicated from many of his Jewish communities because of his stances on the issue. I mean, I can almost guarantee you he's more left wing on Israel Palestine than anybody in this chat, basically. Maybe even more than Nasir, like
Cannot be.
no, well,
no, he's yeah. I'd say Shlomo, you met your match with Elijah.
you did,
Yeah,
and I'm saying that because when I have somebody like Elijah, it also helps
yeah.
because we're able to reach Palestinian and Arab audiences. And then I think Jews and Israelis in the United States have become more accustomed to the work. In Israel, Palestine itself, it's a tougher thing to get like the Israelis
Mhm.
on the ground. But the Palestinians, obviously, that we interact with, who are in like Jenin or El Khalil or Nablus or whatever, the ones that I know there, they're all like I'm pretty
Yeah.
chill with what we do. It's just
But
it's tough to build coalitions sometimes. So I understand.
the,
I give a long answer there, obviously.
Let's
just,
go
So
to
no, no, no,
Alan. Alan
Yeah,
is
we're
waiting.
gonna go. We're gonna
worry.
we're gonna go to
allow
Alan. I
me,
just didn't want to change
allow
the.
me
Go
one
ahead.
more question. I'm
I
sorry,
want to
but
jump in
Alan,
Well,
you
on
excuse
something.
me.
let's go to
Go ahead.
Alan.
Go ahead.
Alan has raised his hand for a long time.
Yeah.
Thank, thank you. I greatly appreciate the work done from Texas as a student activist in America for years. It's important what's happening in America. But the question I raise is exactly what has been manifest. There needs to be in the development of a democratic manifestation of the people, a voice of the displaced and diaspora. It
Mm.
could not be a voice that has governing power, but so much of the energy in the Jewish community and in the Palestinian community directs toward what is the future they want to see. There are as many Palestinians who want to come back to Palestine as are there. And
Yeah.
so the government that includes a new Palestine somehow has to recognize that voice. And in the same way, there's so much energy in the American community that relates to the Israeli world that unless that division and struggle goes on in America more clearly and can be recognized in the on the land in some form, we're not adequately creating the democracy that we need. And so I just want to see that in the as you consult with professionals in creating elections, how is there a consultative voice from the Palestinian diaspora and the Jewish diaspora that wants to be recognized in the future of the land? That seems to be a challenge that needs to be addressed. And I wish, Jadd, your organization would come to Ann Arbor. We had an amazing encampment there, and there is not an adequate communication. The Jewish community is amazingly divided and excommunicates one another quite radically, quite regularly. But I'm glad to see what you're doing. I wish in the chat your email and Elijah's. My Jewish name Eliyahu, so I'm kind of right there with Elijah. We can have your contact so that we can keep a better communication, because this really is the diaspora community, for the most part, talking about what we would like to see in the Holy Land. Thank you.
There you go. I just put my email in the chat, as well as the website for Atidna, if anybody would like to check it out. And you can see the media and the interviews and all that we've been able to do as well. You can hear more about our own perspectives. And so, but I deeply appreciate that. So thank you.
Go ahead, Shlomo.
Question very quick. So is Elijah anti-Zionist? Because Zionism is at the underlying problem here, and the question is, how do you deal with it?
Elijah,
did you want me to answer? Elijah's one of his posts from just a few days ago is that Israel needs to be, how should I say this? Intervention is needed in Israel, and just the way that Germany was denazified, it needs to be de-Zionized. So I would say yes, he's definitely anti-Zionist.
Elijah's absolutely an anti-Zionist.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
There's not even a speck of doubt in that.
He's I would say that he we actually were talking about you the other day, Jadd, and we both came to the conclusion that I think me and him probably he's much more hardcore. I'm not saying Jadd is bad or this or that, but we were more we probably come into more of an agreement as far as anti-Zionism than
Sure. I tend to be more deliberate with certain vocabulary that I'll use.
That's the only difference. I think, spiritually everything you're there, but Elijah is much more forceful in his words.
But I think also part of that, with due respect, is just by nature of the fact that I'm Palestinian. I mean, so anyway.
Yeah, go ahead, Joseph. You have your hand up.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm also anti-Zionist. And the reason I'm anti-Zionist is because I think that Zionism has harmed the Jewish people way before it harmed the Palestinian people. And now it is harming both the Palestinian and the Jewish community in Israel. And it turned the Israeli society into a cult that is very difficult to penetrate. So that's why I'm anti-Zionist, but that's not why I raised my hand. I raised my hand because I want to ask Jadd two questions. First of all, what are the conceptual barriers that you encounter in your meeting with Palestinian students and Israeli students or Jewish students, the conceptual barriers, the misconceptions. And the other is, what is, in your mind, the relationship between the current war in Israel and Iran and the Israeli-Palestinian issue?
Yeah. On the first issue, I'd say the issue for Palestinians will be at first, and I used to be very much this way, and I still tend to be apprehensive in certain ways, is that when you have an organization that is joint, the question is essentially how much are they focusing on the actual on the ground issues such as occupation and apartheid and whatnot versus kind of trying to both sides kind of 50-50 things in a way, because we know that this is disproportionate. And that as much as I care, for example, about the well-being of the Israelis, we need to acknowledge that first and foremost, that the plight of the Palestinians is just far more severe in terms of what we've seen in Gaza with genocide, what we've seen in the West Bank with expanding settler violence. I mean, even just you can, I think, the Knesset just recently approved new settlements, a large batch of them that, of course, are illegal under international law. And so I think for some Palestinians and some Arabs, there's this concept of, are we normalizing the actions of Israel or the Israeli government, or even, Israeli sovereignty over Palestinian land? And I understand all of those concerns. And I can, again, if you get to know Elijah and I, you would see that that's not even an issue. We're actually very, I mean, if you look up our names, you'll see a ton of articles that we've written. And we're very steadfast, for example, on that while we are peace activists, we're also peace activists in terms of justice, which means dismantling occupation, dismantling apartheid. I believe, as I've mentioned before, I believe in a confederation, so I'm not a traditional two-stater. I think that the confederation is the most moral and also probably the most pragmatic model there is. And I believe in the right of return for Palestinians and everything like that. And so that's kind of how it is for Palestinians. For Israelis, the concern is that we're excusing terrorism against Israelis, for example. I remember we had a very difficult conversation with an Israeli girl back in April of 2024. And actually, some of her friends were killed on October 7th. And so for her, she was very emotional. And when we tried to explain our perspective to her and our views, and we don't excuse Hamas and we don't condone any terrorism against any civilians at all. But she got very kind of agitated with us and upset. And I think mostly with Elijah, not me, because I'm Palestinian. She doesn't really have much expectation for me, but because Elijah was pushing back a lot of what she was saying, she kind of felt like we were, that we were too pro-Palestine, basically. And I think that, we obviously have that, like, I honestly don't love the labels pro-Palestine, pro-Israel. I think that they don't mean a whole lot in the grand scheme of things. But we obviously tend to focus much more on the plight of the Palestinians because that's far more severe. And it needs to be addressed, and it's not covered a lot in the media. And so that's the challenge that way. For the second question you were asking, how does the war in Iran, what was the exact question? How does the war in Iran
What is
affect?
the relationship between the war between Israel and Iran and the Israeli-Palestinian conflict?
Oh, okay. Thank you. Yeah. Well, look, I think that the war in Iran right now is it's a very tricky subject for a lot of people, in the sense that you can be, for example, a critic of the Islamic Republic, as I have been in the past, while also, as an American especially, acknowledging that our actions in Iran are probably most certainly unconstitutional and immoral. And I say that as somebody who understands the complexity of the Iranian people and how there are many people who are not happy at all with the regime, and there are some people who do support the regime. And I'm not someone to tell Iranians or Persians how to feel, but I do know from an American perspective, and especially also from a Palestinian perspective, what I hate to see the United States doing, which is to intervene in a land by either on the, literally firing, drones and missiles into a sovereign country, or by funding a warfare or genocide, for example, in Gaza and in ethnic cleansing in the West Bank. And so I think inherently the Iran war is tied to Israel-Palestine just because Israel is a part of both. And I think that for Palestinians, Palestinians ultimately believe, it's a weird thing, right? Because there are some Palestinians who will say Iran and that sort of coalition stands up for the Palestinian people. There are some Palestinians who will say, to hell with Iran and Israel. We don't like either of them. It's a kind of a complicated thing there. I obviously am somebody focused very much on Israel Palestine, so I don't necessarily have the strongest feelings of Iran one way or the other. But I think just inherently they're tied because we're talking about a geopolitical battle between Israel and its neighbors, and kind of the illusion of Zionism in the Middle East and how powerful Zionism is, and how Israel's not indestructible, for example, against its adversaries. And as an American, I'm especially troubled by the fact that we're so involved in striking Iran. And so I just think the war doesn't benefit anybody. And I think it has to be tied to Israel Palestine, because we're talking about a state of Israel that is by far the most powerful country in the Middle East, and that has been long viewed as kind of invincible to the world, which is why I know a lot of people who do not at all support Iran, but are I don't want to say even like siding with Iran in the grand scheme of things, but like who are okay with Iran going to bat with Israel because they want the illusion of Zionism to fall, quote unquote. And so that's how I see it. But there's a lot of complexity to that naturally. So that's a long.
In particular for the Palestinians, it's not the question of whether, like you said, being pro Iran and stuff, but it's the
Correct.
consolidation that
Right.
Israel will be the ultimate hegemonic. And unfortunately, this war with Iran, I believe that Palestinians will pay the price more than anyone,
Right.
because we're already seeing that the West Bank and where the Palestinians live is being regulated to militias, armed settler militias, because the armies are occupied in Lebanon and these other wars. And this is, in a sense, brings the problem to this Iran war. Why it's a problem for us is that
Right.
it will consolidate more and more Israeli power in the region, and that's just definitely not good.
I think it's a battle. It's to tear down the illusion, I think, of the invincible regime, and to sort of stand in solidarity with the Palestinians, even if you're like myself and you have big problems with Iran.
Sure.
So
that's
right. That's what
it's not complicated. The war in Iran is a war crime, period. It's full stop.
Let's go to Libby. Thanks, Libby. Go ahead, Reed.
Thanks, Jadd, for what you and Elijah are doing on the campuses. It's so important, and to bring people together. Just a couple of quick sharings from my own experience. When my husband, Len, and I started our Jewish-Palestinian living room dialogue here more than 30 years ago, people did not even know who the Palestinians were. People would say, "You mean the Pakistanis?" And we would say, no, Palestinians. And so I feel like now, as negative and terrible as it is, that for the very first time, people are recognizing the Palestinians. To me, that is a positive that's going to come out from this war and what's happened to Gaza and everything that's been going on. Is I think people are now saying, oh my God, there really are Palestinian people. And I just never really knew about them, and I never really knew about their history. So I think very important time for the Palestinians, very important time for their stories to be shared and known, and people to get to know about the Nakba and everything that has led up to this point in time. The other thing that I would say, when somebody talks about hardcore, to me, hardcore represents taking sides, like being so anti one side or anti the other side. But I think there's also a hardcore that's passion. And if enough people can understand the value of survival, working together, if people can understand how all of life is interrelated, interconnected, and interdependent, that is the hardcore we need to be presenting, that we're for everybody. And I have to say, when the astronauts just came back again, the second time, and reminded us about the Earth from space, Apollo was in 68, and now here we are again being reminded about something that we've totally forgotten about the interconnectedness of life on this planet. And they've told us again, boy, we're all in this together. We have to figure out how we're going to take care of the planet. We have to figure out how to solve wars. We have to figure out why war is obsolete and never, never, never ultimately solves the big picture, the big problem. So what you are doing on the college campuses to bring people together and listening, building relationships, seeing each other as human and equal couldn't be more important at a more important time to overcome the idea that wars are ever going to solve anything. They never, never have or will. So just hang in there, stick with it, encourage the students to get to know each other, to share your stories, and work for the big picture, the whole living system, the beautiful planet that we're all totally dependent on for our survivor. So thank you for what you're doing, and hopefully that hardcore will be for the big picture.
Can I say something? Can I say something?
Yeah, Olivia, I'm gonna let you say something, but I'm gonna take the because there was one. I believe there was two hands. So but here's the thing.
I can't see the hands or anything. I beg your pardon.
I'm gonna put you on the list, but let's do the thing because of time, and we're getting a lot of people. Just let's try to speed it up a little bit. Go ahead, Mr. Mori.
Yeah. Okay. So first of all, I would like to say thank you very much for what you have, get involved in it. Okay, but first question is, okay, I'm just wondering if since you get involved in many, wonderful, activities, but you feel kind of more pressure from the university authority, and then just as far as the freedom of express, okay, and is concerned, and so that's the first step. My question: how do you feel about it? More pressure due to the recent chaotic situation?
Yeah, I would say 2 years ago, when we had the encampments at the university, actually, that's when I felt that things were the most difficult to make voices heard. And I felt that it was a combination. It was actually our university was very strict and shut things down right away because our administration at the University of Texas, we work with the Texas state government. The governor of Texas essentially oversees what we do. And so he's very right wing and is willing to stop things. And so in Texas, it already was very difficult. And now under the Trump administration, and I think I'd say I personally am not that fearful to be outspoken. But I know a lot of students, for example, who don't want to be a part of a TIDNA because they, for example, are undocumented and they're scared that their names will be released and that they could be deported. I know of people who are undocumented who no longer will protest or are outspoken politically because obviously the fear that can come with that. And so me personally, I'm not at risk of that, and I'm not somebody who's fearful, but for the many people that are, I have an obligation then to stand up and say something because their voices will not be heard. And, just recently I visited in Texas. There was a Palestinian woman named Laqaq Wardia who was in an ICE facility for almost a year. And I live about 30 minutes away from her. And I had the opportunity to go to the facility and briefly meet with her because I work for the Texas state government right now. And my representative was a part of that trip. And subhanAllah, I mean, she only about a few weeks afterwards, she finally got released after a year. And I was proud of the fact that, at least from what we gathered from what they were saying, that our trip there raised awareness for that situation. But this was a young lady who was there for a year and had no voice. And had we not been there for her, she might still be there. And so that's it's all worth it to us. And I'm not fearful. And the administration makes things tough. Universities still make things tough, but we're still here. And, thankfully they haven't come after it too much. So, Alhamdulillah, I'm very blessed. I'm lucky.
Thank you.
What is the situation with Laka
We're
now,
gonna
right now?
hold on, Shlomo. We're gonna go to Sean, and then we're going to Olivia, and then we're gonna go to Shlomo.
I just wonder because
Okay,
you mentioned Laka Kodia.
Oh, okay. Did you want to follow up on that real quick? Go ahead, Jadd. He said,
If he wants to ask a quick question,
Yeah, what is her situation now? Because my understanding is that she's still about to be deported or something. They are still after her.
Yeah, as far as I'm aware, she's been released, and I believe she's back in New Jersey, but she still is potentially going to be deported back because she's no longer in the United States legally based off of the administration's own consideration. And so, unfortunately, right now, I think she's still we really don't know. The hope is that she can stay here. Other than that, unfortunately, it would probably be she gets deported back to Palestine, where obviously it's just a terrible situation. But we're still fighting for her. And the Texas Civil Rights Project right now, who I worked with, is also working on trying to keep her either in Texas or New Jersey, because her mother is Palestinian American and lives in New Jersey, I believe. So we're gonna keep fighting for her.
awesome. All right, thank you, Sean, and then we're gonna have Olivia. Go ahead, Sean.
Jadd, I know there's tough times going on, and people are scared because they might get deported and or get accusation from this Zionist organization. And have you seen that guy, that Rabbi Shmuley, whatever that guy's name is? I'm sure you heard of that guy.
Yeah.
That guy, he was so like frenzy. Like he's the pro-Zionist rabbi who and what he does is he will go after anybody who criticizes Israel or say something bad about Israel. But I remember I was watching video of him and people were ridiculing him or calling him names or telling him that he's a Zionist pig or he has Zionist dementia and all that. But he freaks out and he starts going and telling authority, "Oh, this guy is harassing me. This guy is compromising my safety as a Jewish. He's an anti-Semitic. I want to take him to court." This is the mindset of this Zionist guy who just attacks anybody and pushes you through legal forces and legal lawsuit against you just because you called him names, and he takes it like, "Oh, you're endangering the safety of me because I'm a Jewish person. You are threatening my safety. I don't feel safe to be here. I want to go to the police and report you." That kind of thing. I don't know how to deal with these guys. And for Libby, I appreciate what you said about war. War it hurts everybody. Nobody benefits from it. But can you explain that to Ben Gvir and Smotrich? They sure won't understand that.
And thank you for that. It's good to hear that from you. You're right. There are crazy people, unfortunately, but I'm lucky enough to where I don't have to deal with too many crazies. I have had to at times, and I'm somebody who is willing to talk to people, even though some people are very, very crazy. I sort of have, honestly, nothing really phases me anymore. At first, it was difficult. Now, I mean, I don't like talking to these people, but if I can tolerate pretty much anybody now based off conversation, but I will vehemently disagree with them in any case, and I'll try to change their mind even if they're not wanting to, because I ultimately try not to give up on anybody, which I know some people think is crazy, but I really try not to give up on anybody. So, but it's hard. It's hard.
It is. No, I agree. It is hard.
All right, so we're gonna go Olivia. Go ahead.
Yes, hello. Thank you, Jadd, for being with us. And what you're doing is praiseworthy. I think we all agree there. But let's face the facts, Jadd. Is the audio okay? Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
You can, okay. Well, and thank you again for being with us. Let's face the facts. What's happening in Israel makes my hair stand on end. They've passed the death penalty for Palestinians who are in prison, who have
I heard about that too.
Israelis. And what about the settlers that have killed Palestinians and policemen just sort of hang around doing nothing? What about IDF soldiers that aim at the heads of little children? No armies do this. This is sick behavior. So that's one fact that makes one of the thousands of facts that makes my hair stand on end every day, all day. Israel and the United States are the two most dangerous countries on the face of the earth, and both happen to have nuclear energy. And both happen to be led by people that are lunatics. And both happen to have a little group of other lunatics, incompetent and ignorant, very, very, very ignorant, and supported by big money. And both of these people have started wars for personal reasons, not because, in the case of the US, Iran represented any kind of a threat. That has been determined by all the security agencies in the US a long time ago, and repeated over and over again. They go to war. This guy went to war to please Netanyahu, who was holding a noose around his neck, who was, you know, if I put when I'm a sort of old lady, if I was a strong man like Shlomo and held both my hands around your neck and asked you for something, and if you didn't give it to me, you'd be, you know, puffing and panting about to die, you probably would buy me a coffee or whatever I wanted. You probably would give in. We're talking about people that are using blackmail. We're talking about the lobbies. We're talking about the donor group. We're talking about the big fanatical evangelical donors and the Orthodox donors threatening and blackmailing both parties. We're talking about Netanyahu that says, you do what I say, who seems to set the US foreign policy. One never quite knows to what extent and when and for what, but seems to set the US foreign policy, saying, ah, ha, ha, otherwise I'll pull out the Epstein fines, ah, ha, ha, you don't know, you know perfectly well what I'll say about you. So we have these two guys behaving like the emperors of bygone days, who started wars for prestige or to pay debts or whatever. But we are now 2026 and this thing is happening. So we also have a fact. Let's mention one other fact. Propaganda works. It worked very well in Germany in the 30s. It has worked very well for Netanyahu, who for the last 30 years, exactly 30 years, has been fear-mongering, has been brainwashing his citizens about Iran. They're going to nuke us. They'll be able to nuke us in 3 months or in 6 months, and then after a while, in 2 months and in 2 weeks. So Israelis are full of fear. Israelis are full of fear and can't think straight. They're a very polled society, meaning there are lots of opinion polls. And according to Gideon Levy and others, a certain amount of them were quite comfortable, let's use the word comfortable, with a genocide. We're talking about the people that are comfortable with a genocide are sick. Now, it's very difficult for you in a country thousands of miles away who are doing wonderful work, yourself and your friends. And I repeat that, absolutely wonderful work. And congratulations. But I think you might agree that you need to get the children at an earlier age. You're getting the campus age. Very good, wonderful. But how about working in the synagogues? How about getting the children at a much younger age? How about getting the children in Israel at a younger age? And you might find it difficult. Schools might not want you. I think this is important. I'm sure Libby would agree. One has to educate children to knowing each other, you know, and growing up with each other. When they grow up together, they tend not to want to shoot each other when they're 20 and 21. You know, so we have a whole collection of the most horrendous, awful facts staring us in the face. Just hideous, hideous, hideous. And, you know, it's difficult to make sense of it all. And my heart goes out to the victims. Palestinians and Iranians, my heart goes out to you all.
We've often spoken about this.
What can one say?
Okay.
That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Olivia.
Thank you.
Just to follow up on something that Olivia said about reaching people when they're young, especially because young people, especially in Israel, tend to be more extreme than the older generation. And I think this is a pattern that we see around the world as well.
Yeah.
And we mentioned Elijah. We seem to be mentioning Elijah a lot, but one of our last discussions I had with Elijah was that he sometimes feels frustrated with leftist liberal Zionist more so. And it's interesting because sometimes he was telling me that he feels like reaching out and working with the settlers who are much more ideological right, that he feels that sometimes when they come on board, that they actually have an interest in coexistence more than sometimes some of these the hypocrites on the left. And
Yeah.
maybe Jadd can talk about that because Olivia just mentioned that, and then we'll go to Mr. Mori and Shlomo
Yeah.
again.
Yeah, I'll be very. I don't want to take too much time. I know we've been on here for a while, but I want to say first of all to Olivia, thank you for that and for your passion there, because I feel the same way that you do so many times. And to go to Joseph's point, actually, about kind of a nutshell that I give to Israelis, because that's an important thing, right? I tell Israelis all the time. I said, listen, you have to make a conscious, and I'm talking mostly in America because that's just the extent of where I'm doing most of the work. And I understand it's a different ball game than it is in the Holy Land. But what I tell people is, look, you as an Israeli, you have to be the generation that seeks peace with the Palestinians and seeks a just peace with the Palestinians. Because if you do not, your own civilization is going to crumble. The current way that Israel is structured, its occupation of the Palestinians, its military regime, it is not sustainable long term for the Israelis and obviously not for the Palestinians. And we're all going to be reading up about this in history books. And you do not want the Israeli people to be remembered as the people who slaughtered Palestinians. You do not want that to be the way that the Israelis are remembered or the Jewish people are remembered. Palestinians and Israelis are connected historically, genetically, culturally. And the idea that you can create a state that is somehow both ethnically Jewish and democratic is impossible. It's impossible when you're subjugating the Palestinians in the West Bank and in Gaza, and the Palestinians in Israel are still treated as second-class citizens who, if they speak out in the Knesset, they can get dragged out. They can't even have their voices heard. And, typically, and Joseph, that's, yes, what is the reply from the Israelis? For a lot of them, it's a long game of back and forth questions, because their concern is always with security, right? We don't hate the Palestinians, but we don't feel secure. We don't feel safe. We don't feel this, and that. We have to build a wall. We have to have a blockade. We need a siege because that's the only way we're safe. And it's just not true. Historically speaking, it's just not true. The Palestinians have been a welcoming people for the Jewish people in that land. We know that historically, that land of Palestine, when it existed under the Ottoman Empire, was a land of relative coexistence, far better than what we see right now, in which different groups, Jewish, Christian, Muslim, Arab Jewish, were able to live in relative harmony. Not perfect, but with relative harmony. And that's a future that we can create again if we create a democratic society, be it a confederation of some sort. And there you go, Joseph. Well, not just Israelis, but people need enemies. We need enemies to fulfill an agenda. If we don't have enemies, then we can't play a game of us versus them. That's how it is in America, too. We need to have enemies worldwide because that's the only way that we can dominate. And that's the competition is what fuels us, right? It's a sport almost. Politics is a sport. And so that's the game that we have to play there. But like Olivia was saying, I thank you for your passion on that because I feel the same way. And trust me, while dialogue and peace is important, what I love the most is that people who get involved in a tidna, they tend to be then who are proactive, for example, in protesting, in actually engaging in politics. I mean, now in the state of Texas, by the way, the Democratic Party in Texas, 77% of Democratic voters in Texas believe that Israel is guilty of genocide in Gaza. Those are numbers that you could not have fathomed years prior. And this is Texas, a very conservative state. And that to me is the type of figure that makes me think there has been change. And that change has been through what they've seen on the news, but also through the conversations that people have with Palestinians. Many Israelis and Jews I speak to in America have never spoken to a Palestinian and have no desire to. But when they begin to have that conversation, they realize that they're not actually my enemy. So that's what I would say. But thank you very much. I know we have a few more
Thanks.
questions.
Yeah, there's a few. Jadd, how are you on time? I just want to.
Let's give it. I got 15 more minutes, maybe.
Okay, so let's do this. Because we got 3, and I think Joseph is asking some questions. I want to give Mr. Mori, then Joseph, and then Shlomo a shot, and then let's try to make your questions brief because He said
I won't
15 minutes,
answer
but let's
Yeah.
make it more like 10 because
Okay, so I think Olivia mentioned already about the importance of doing something for future generation, especially kids. I just to add something else because not in a way, so I'll be gone. Okay, in a way, so I'll have to go to the heaven. I hope that. So before that, I think so. I'm really worried about okay, and kids, especially in Israeli kids. So they grew up with the learning about hate. They are not in they grown up with the unusual sort of hard to believe, to understand how they are grown up. They are just ordinary kids, but just because of the sort of they are put in sort of straight, okay, and dilemma. I think it's actually they don't know, but no, they just follow what that maybe during they have to go to the army, and so they are just brainwashed in a way, okay, and so just they learn how. They don't learn how to love. Actually, it's just it's too sad to see the kids said, "Oh, Palestinian, oh, we have to kill." I don't care about it. So I don't care about killing Palestinian. And so that, to me, it's just kids said like that. But so I think so. We need. So that's why I said in the education from the RA kid. Really, and so that's why. So what you have been doing great. I really appreciate, and I'm so impressed. And so your effort, great effort. And but at the same time, I'd like you to focus on future generation. They have a lot of the potential, and so they can get together. But no, their mindset, state of mind is not. Ordinary children, they internally they have very nice children, and we can see every word like a baby. Look at the baby, and so that
Thank
kind
you.
of
Thank you,
so
Mr.
that
Mori.
is one big worry. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Mori.
you.
Let's
Thank
go
you.
Joseph and then Shlomo. Go ahead,
And
Joseph.
then, yeah.
Joseph, unmute Joseph.
I already asked my question.
Oh.
How did you and Elijah meet? I mean,
Yeah. I put it in the chat. I know, Joseph, you probably saw. We met just as students at UT, actually, through a mutual friend of ours who is Jewish. I grew up in Dallas. Elijah grew up in San Antonio. And I had a friend of mine who's Jewish, who also I went to school with in high school. And she's older than me. Elijah's a year older than me also. But they knew each other from UT. And whenever I enrolled at the University of Texas, she connected Elijah and I. And from there, Elijah presented what a Tidna was. And at that time, a Tidna was very small. But that's how we met. And we've known each other now for over 3 years, almost 3.5 years. So, yeah.
Okay, and let's do Shlomo and then Alan, and then we're going to wrap it up.
So quickly to answer the serious question and yours too, the young Israelis are the problem is education. And Nurit Peled Elchanan, she's the daughter of Mati Peled, who was the first peace activist in Israel, and the sister of Miko Peled, who is a good friend. And so she explained how the education system leads good children, good kids to become the Nazis that they are today. Number one. Number two, I think I can explain partly at least why the leftists are more difficult than the right. Both of them are lying. Okay, both what George Orwell defined as double think, the ability to think two contradicting thoughts at the same time, which later on psychologists call it cognitive dissonance. The leftists in Israel, they are Zionists. And for them, Zionism, to be a Zionist and democratic can live together. It cannot. They try to square the circle, as Ilan Pape used to say. And they can't, you cannot unentangle it, because Zionism in Israel is the real religion. Okay, this is how we grew up. And while the right wing, their lie is bigger, but it is easier to disentangle, because they pretend that they are messianic and all of that, and all they really have is greed. They want the land without people. So I can understand why they are, in a way, easier to deal with. But that's my little explanation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm
And Miko,
gonna talk to you more about that, Shlomo, because that's an interesting point.
Okay.
yeah, that's wonderful. But you mentioned the Pellet. I've met Miko Pellet, and he's a good guy, and I have his book. So yeah, I'm glad that you mentioned him.
Awesome. So let's go, Alan, and then we're gonna wrap it up.
Yeah, I just had one last comment. Jadd, you spoke of the Palestinians being welcoming people. And it just brought to mind, when I have to deal with anti-Zionism, what I do, I'm a pro-Semite. Pro-Semitism is what we need to promote. That is the common culture, basically hospitality, welcoming the other, taking care of the stranger, remembering the good that was between us. That is the culture that we need to bring forward. And the anti-ism that is all over in the structure of war and domination is what we need to turn around into the culture of peace and cooperation. We are in a culture of domination and the whole war system, and begin cooperation, caring, sharing, helping, and healing. That's what the whole world needs. That's what the Holy Lands need. And pro-Semitism is the way of the future for our people. That's what I think. And I'm glad to have met you. Come to Ann Arbor anytime.
I'd love to come. I'd love to make a visit. So I appreciate you, Achi. That's beautiful. Thank you very much.
Okay, I got your email. We'll be in touch.
All right, let's wrap it up.
I want to thanks Alan, thanks everybody, and thanks Jadd again for coming. It's always a pleasure to see you.
Of course.
Thank you, Jadd.
Yeah, thanks everyone for your participation, and we'll see you guys in 2 weeks. Joseph, is it 2 weeks?
Yes.
Good things coming.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
And always feel free to visit the website of Atidna. I think can you put it up one more time, Jadd?
I
Because
will put it up.
The problem is when you Google Atidna, another organization comes up that's not necessarily a nice one.
Yeah, there's another Atidna. I think it's called the Atidna Association.
Yeah, it's a right wing. It's a right wing. Yeah, that's why when I first saw Atidna, I said I Googled it and I'm like, oh, this is not good. And then
we're Atidna International.
Yeah,
Atidna
big difference. Yeah, so big difference. Make sure you look up the right one, because
yeah.
Again,
we got the name first though. They stole it from us. So
okay, and then by the way, anyone who knows Arabic and knows Hebrew, Atid is future, and then Na is ours. So basically translates into our. It's a joint Arabic Hebrew our future. So just
I probably should have said that at first. That's what the name is. So
yeah, Atid Na. Yeah. Thank you everybody again, and
thank you so much.
Thanks. All right, Joseph. Take care, Joseph.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.